sisters, allies, and loved ones. Welcome to As Told by Childless Women, an oral series that aims to usher our stories into the permanent archives of global history where they have always belonged. I'm your host, Jobi Tyson, and the founder of Tutum Global, a media platform for childless women. And when I first envisioned this series, I knew I wanted to take an active role in documenting the narratives of involuntarily childless women and the childless experience. Today's episode gives a voice to what has been historically a silent story of shame, infertility, and involuntary childlessness. Involuntary childlessness is being childless not by choice. Until your life is facing the childless not by choice classification, you probably wouldn't give it a second thought. But behind every childless woman, there's a story. Today, I would like to introduce to you Mandi Schwab. Mandy is courageously sharing her story with us. Hi, Mandy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you hailing from? What state and country?
I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, before we get into the meat of your story, I want you to just tell us who you are. Who is Mandi Schwab?
I am a very independent, adventurous person. I love to travel. So before we even tried having a baby, that's what I looked for, was just working hard and playing even harder. So I love to hike. The last adventure I took before we tried having a baby was I went to Machu Picchu and hiked the Inca Trail. So that's, yeah. And I'm a massage therapist. I think of myself as a healer, and I love photography, and I love my dog and my husband, and just chilling on the couch too. So I don't know if that.
Yeah. As always, I like to start these conversations off at the beginning. So can you walk us through your journey from the beginning?
Okay. So in the beginning, it was just, we were just trying, but not trying. And then nothing was happening. And then I suddenly did get pregnant, but it was really short and I lost it right away. And my doctor said, that's really common. Miscarriage is common. You're healthy. You should have no issues. And we kept trying. And then I started to really track, like when I was ovulating, and then I got pregnant, and it was really exciting. And then we lost it about 7 weeks, again, pretty early. So the doctor again said, second, that can be common, but if you have a third, then we need to send you to a specialist. So it wasn't until my third miscarriage that they referred me to a specialist. So at this time, I was around like 33, 34 years old. So I never thought I'd have any issues getting pregnant. No one in my family has issues getting pregnant. My mom had my little sister at 38. So I never thought I had any issues whatsoever. And so this is around 2 to 3 years of trying, actively trying. Then we saw the specialist, went through testing, and found out that I have endometriosis, which has also caused premature ovarian failure. So my reproductive organs, like my ovaries, are the age of a 47-year-old. So at the age of 34, I was told that I've already entered menopause, early menopause, which was shocking to me. So the endometriosis answered a lot of questions because I've always had really difficult periods, and I've talked to doctors about it, and they just said, oh, cramps are common. Here's some birth control to help, help it out. So I was angry. Part of me was really angry because no one really took me seriously. And I thought I just had low pain tolerance, but it also answered a lot of questions. But the premature ovarian failure, it took me time to wrap my brain around what was, what my body was actually going through. So our only option at this point, he said, was IVF. So then COVID hit. So we gave it a couple months, and I felt like I was running out of time because I don't know how much time I have because I'm already in early menopause. So went ahead and started IVF this spring, and the first cycle failed. And then they say that if you do back to back, you have a higher, there's chances of it working better. Like there's more success rates in that's happened for women. So we did the second round, and it failed instantly. So I didn't even get a healthy embryo out of both cycles. And the doctor told us before my second cycle that if the second cycle doesn't work, we could shoot and try for a third one, but he doesn't recommend it. And the next option would be egg donor or adoption. Mm-hmm. And honestly, my husband and I could hardly even afford to do the second cycle. There's no way we can afford egg donor. It's really expensive. And we kind of already had our minds made up that if this didn't work, that we were going to choose the childless route. And it's really been difficult because it's been pretty fresh. The second cycle failed on September 25th. So I'm still in that process of telling family and friends, and people just keep pushing and suggesting adoption. And I don't think people realize I've been through a lot, and there's a lot of grief, and my mental state is, it's starting to take a toll on me mentally, financially, physically, and it's starting to put a strain on our marriage. So we just need to be done and move on and find our new purpose in life. So that kind of sums up everything in like almost 4 years. So.
Okay. So it's been a 4-year journey for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I in these series, I like to break down the defined terms that you talk about. So let me just let the audience know that a miscarriage happens when an embryo or fetus dies before the 20th week, which typically happens in early pregnancy. 8 of 10 miscarriages occur in the first 3 months. And in fact, 10 to 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. So it's not uncommon to suffer through miscarriages. And also IVF stands for in vitro fertilization. Explain the IVF process to our audience, if you don't mind.
So in the beginning, they put you on birth control to help regulate your cycles, or your cycles, because sometimes it can take a month or two before they have you start the injections. And then you get, it's interesting because the clinic I went to, they didn't really explain much. So when the package of medication arrived, it was overwhelming. So, and they give you a schedule of what you have to take in the morning and at night. And I had to do 3 shots in the morning and 1 or 2 at night. And there's a lot of doctor's appointments. So it's very time consuming. And so you have all these medications. You have to take them at a certain time in the morning and a certain time at night. Like you got to be on track. You can't, you have like a half an hour window in case, life happens, but they do, you have to be right on the dot. So it really interferes with your life. And it's about, the first cycle of stems was 12 days. So it was 12 days of injections. My second round was 15 days of injections. And you go in and you do like the vaginal ultrasound, and they measure your follicles to see the growth. And that's when they get to be at the right stage, that's when they schedule your retrieval. So then you go in, and it's a very mild surgery, and they collect all the eggs, and then your husband's, they collect your husband's sperm, and then it's pretty amazing what you get to see happen, like the process of what it takes to make a baby. It really shows you the science behind it, and it's pretty fascinating. And then the eggs and the sperm go to the lab, and they inject the sperm into the egg the day of the egg retrieval, and then you find out the day of how many eggs were collected and how many matured. And then by day 3 to day 5, you get an update on how many have fertilized. And then by day 5 is when they fully develop to where they're a healthy embryo, and that's when they can send it in for genetic testing and for the implantation to do the transfer. So when I got the updates, we had one the first cycle that they sent in for genetic testing, and it was an abnormal. And the second cycle, none of my embryos made it to day 5. So what it means is why I was miscarrying is because it's a chromosome issue. So my eggs are geriatric. They're not healthy eggs. They're not strong enough. So yes, there's still a chance I could naturally get pregnant. You hear about that happening all the time, which is a miracle. But my chances are very, very low. So, because my eggs suck, basically. Yeah. So I don't know if that really explains it.
Yeah, that explains a lot. That's very helpful to know. And what about the cost? What was the cost, and was insurance covering it? How did that work?
So we were grateful that we had insurance cover most of the cost the first cycle. The second cycle, we had to pay for majority of it. So that's another thing that isn't really explained well from where I went is the cost of at the medical clinic is one price tag. And then your medication is a separate cost.
Okay.
And that medication is expensive. I had, for gonal F, the amount that I needed for just my first cycle was 12 grand for just one medication out of 4 medications that I took.
Oh, wow.
So you're looking at like 50 grand on just the 2 cycles that we went through. So yeah, we had to pay for most of all my medication the second cycle.
Wow. When you reached out, you mentioned that you and your husband made the decision recently to step away, and because it both put a mental toll on both of you. Can you talk about how it affects your mental and physical health?
It's you as a woman, I mean, I can't really speak for my husband. I can share a little bit of what he shared with me. But as a woman, I feel like my body has completely failed me. You know, I have a lot of blame and guilt on me because I can't give my husband a baby. The medication that you are injecting into your body, it's all hormones. So you're feeling like a crazy person. You know, I mean, if you think about like when you're just menstruating, when you're PMS, you feel crazy sometimes, like just times that by 100.
Yeah.
And it's definitely made me feel like I've sabotaged some relationships because I've really needed support and I'm expecting a lot from people, and that's not fair to them. I've struggled with just getting out of bed at times and just living, you know, day to day. I'm a massage therapist, so I'm trying to help people, and it's been hard for me. I mean, it's even interfered with my job because, you know, I'm not feeling 100% myself. And we've put our life on hold for years where we haven't even gotten to live and do the things that we enjoy doing because we've been saving for, you know, this, and we've also don't know when we're going to have a kid. And, you know, just like my PTO and stuff, I haven't even used it because I've been saving it because I knew I was going to be high risk. And so it's every month has been a disappointment, and it's just a lot of grief. And it's a very complex type of grief that's really hard to explain to people who've never lived it. Yeah. So.
And your feelings and your grief is definitely validated, and you're not alone in this. And
right.
Yes. So some of the terms that you've mentioned, I just want to go over. Endometriosis, how did that affect you? Did you know you had it for a long time, or did you find out? How tell us a little about that.
My doctor I mean, because you have to go through the surgery to fully get the full diagnosis, right? But in the ultrasound, you could see all the dark spots that were on my ovaries. So he's pretty much, I don't have like a full, I don't know what you would call it, like medical, I mean, I trust him, but I guess, what am I trying? Sorry, trying to gather my thoughts. So it just, for years, I've always, like, back in my early 20s, like, I'd have really bad periods where it would even be hard to, like, go to work. And ibuprofen would hardly mask it. And I would tell my doctors about it, and they, would just say, well, cramps are really common. Like, I felt like I was never taken seriously, and they just look at me like I was talking like I have low pain tolerance. So they gave me birth control, which helped. It did. But all it did was mask the symptoms. So I had this disease for most of my adult life, and I never knew anything about it. So that's just what sucks. Like, one young woman, like PCOS or endometriosis, like, if you feel like there's something not right with your body, like, your body better than any doctor. So push for, getting some kind of results and tests, because if I would have known sooner, I think, it could have changed this whole outcome. So,
yeah. And then you also mentioned premature ovarian failure, and which is early menopause, correct?
Yeah.
So how did that affect you physically?
Oh, that one was hard. That part of me is embarrassed to say that I am already in early menopause, because it's funny, because even in the last couple months, I was at the gym, and one of my old clients came up to me and was like, oh yeah, my wife, she's in menopause. Like, you know how that is. Like, I feel like there's a lot of, it makes me feel like, I don't know. It's really hard to put into words exactly how I feel, but it just sucks. Like, I feel like my body again failed me, and I feel like I shouldn't be experiencing this at 35 years old. I should be experiencing this when I'm like close to 50. I don't have anybody that I can relate to that's my age, that's going through it. So it answers some questions.
The symptoms yet?
Yeah, I have. So then that was something the doctor asked me, like, well, have you been having hot flashes or night sweats? And I was like, yeah, I have. And my husband kind of like, wow, like, because I just thought I was running hot. Like, I didn't think anything really of it, So, yeah.
Okay. So I know you said it's still raw and fresh, but how have you been able to grasp coping with childlessness, or have you yet?
It's still a day-to-day basis. I journal a lot. So I put all my thoughts down on paper. It doesn't even have to make sense. I just put it all on paper. I work out daily, and I've started seeing a therapist. So, I want to come to peace with it. I think that there's always going to be grief from time to time. Something in your life is going to trigger that. It's, which sucks. I wish that we could just really come to peace with it and not have those triggers. But, even when we get old and our friends start becoming grandparents, again, we're going to have to face it again. But I think it'll be easier to accept versus like me right now, where I have really, really long, hard, dark days. I'm hoping that it passes a little quicker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. With what has been your experiences as far as the social stigma of being a childless woman? What has your experience of being a childless woman have been for you?
People don't want to accept it when you tell them that, is what I'm finding. And that's just in this short month. And it makes me feel like I haven't been through enough in order for people to accept it, which isn't fair, because I feel like I have been through hell, and I know that there's worse stories out there, But oh, they'll just bring up a friend. Well, my friend did 9 cycles and finally got her miracle baby, or my friend adopted and like they're very, you know, like they'll always share some happy story that they know of.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody talks about, I still haven't found anybody like besides online who has chosen this path. So it's just, I think it's really hard for people to accept, which makes it hard for me because I need support versus people trying to tell me or trying to fix it, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for me,
Yeah.
you know. Like I feel like they think I don't want to be a mom that bad because I'm just, they think I'm giving up too easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an unfair assumption. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So looking back on I was going to ask you, looking back on your infertility journey, were there any clues along the way when you sit back and think about it? But you kind of already answered that. You said the heavy periods, the endometriosis, the premature ovarian failure. So a lot of times there are clues along the way, but as you mentioned that, and a lot of other women feel like the doctors fail us because they're just not listening and they're not getting to the root of our problems in the beginning, you know? So what, I mean, were you just really just trying to tell the doctors, this is what's happening and you just didn't feel heard?
Yes. Yeah. But thankfully, the infertility clinic I went to, I got answers. I know a lot of women don't get answers. And we have been actively trying. And I honestly think now that I know my situation, I think I've had more miscarriages than I'm aware of because I had them so early. And just knowing now what it, you know, when I was actually really tracking it, what was going on in my body. When you're actually really aware, when you're really trying to have a baby, you're more aware of your body than ever. So,
yeah, that's so
true. And I think that's why it's easier for me to move forward because I do have answers. So, yeah.
Well, you spoke of going forward, but let's rewind for a bit. Knowing what you know now, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your 20-year-old self?
To be an advocate for yourself and push. And, you know, not to be scared that just because they have a degree that you think, you know, they know more because you know your body better than they do. So you got to be an advocate for yourself. And it sucks, but that's what I really learned throughout this is you got to speak up and you really have to fight for yourself.
I know that with or without children, our lives still have meaning and purpose. And you mentioned earlier about purpose. Have you figured out your life's purpose?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm excited to see what the future holds. You know, everything up till this moment has been for my future family as far as children go. So I feel like I need to find who the new Mandy is and what I want in life. And I know I still want to, you know, I want to get back to traveling. I want to get more into my, you know, doing photography. I have those maternal instincts that I'm going to have to apply either to my fur babies and my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids. Like, you know, there's still a lot of good, but right now I just need to grieve and just find who the new me is. So
have you found that you feel comfortable speaking about your infertility journey with family and friends yet?
I'm getting there. I shared a lot with a lot of my close friends throughout the IVF process, which was hard because of the insensitive comments that came along with it. But a lot of it is just people aren't educated. So, you know, that's why there's just a lot of insensitivity behind it because people are just really uneducated. I mean, I was even before I started IVF, and you know, a lot of people think IVF equals baby, and it doesn't. So I'm still working on that. I haven't like socially came out on social media and like announced everything that's happened yet. I see these women that are, you know, really, I mean, because when you're going through it, you want to find, I think it's human nature. You want to find someone that you can relate to. And these women on Instagram that I found, bless their heart, because when we got to the point where we wanted to move forward as a childless couple, it was really hard to find someone who came to that decision as well. Like, people don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think eventually I'll come out on Instagram and speak up. My girlfriend, she just got out of school and is a therapist, and she mentioned that there's no support groups here in Vegas for this kind of, you know, stuff. So she's trying to work on that, and she wants me to help her. So I don't know if anything will come from it. I really don't know. But if there's anything I can do to help anybody, yeah, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I'm going through this. So, but I haven't gotten to the point of sharing publicly with everybody yet, just my closest friends and family.
Yeah, well, take your time. Just take it one day at a time. I really appreciate you, Mandy, for sharing your story with us and reaching out and being so candid and vulnerable today to share your story with our audience. Are there any last words that you want to leave with us? Anything I missed?
I don't think you missed anything. I just appreciate you, you know, taking your time to listen to me. And yeah, if you want to, if anybody is out there and wants to just, you know, talk more, it's Mandy, MANDILYN 19 on Instagram. So you can find me. So
my hope is that you grieve so that you can be free to feel something else and heal all parts of you. And I appreciate you again for sharing your story with us, Mandy.
Thank you, Jobi.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Childless woman, you're beautiful. Child-free woman, you are enough. This journey might not be easy, but we're in this together so we can get through this together by owning our voice. Thank you for your time and attention today. Please like, subscribe, share, and download this episode. From Tutum Global, I'm your host, Jobi Tyson. See you next time on As Told by Childless Women. To support this series, please visit astoldbychildlesswomen.com.